conversation later on. However, these are some burrs when you can which are needed for tooth preparation. One is depth orientation groove, and incisal reduction and label shoulder can be done by long end round end taper. So this is a round end taper. Proximal clearance can be given with a very thin taper. Proximal and lingual chamfer also can be given with a chamfer burr, and then the palatal and lingual surface can be prepared with this dumbbell flame shape burr, and then finishing can be achieved with the end cutting burr. So these are different types of burrs you usually need to use during your crown preparation. You always look at the head of the handpiece as a guideline. I'm just giving you one point of. So always look this head of a handpiece. As long as it is parallel to the occlusal surface of a tooth, you are almost like a going towards the long axis of a tooth for reduction. So whenever you are trimming the tooth, always look at this head so that you are always preparing the tooth along the long axis. You are always along the parallel to the tooth structure in that sense. So this is, we are going to talk a lot about this tooth reduction later on. So this is typically a crown prepared already, and this is how it looks actually like this. So this is how your amount of tooth reduction has to be done for giving a PFM crown. So technically, how to start with the preparation? You can go for one or two or three depth orientation holes, and then you can go join those holes to give depth orientation grooves. Depth orientation grooves can also be like 2 or 3 on the labial side, and then 2 or 3 on the lingual side. So it always has to follow the occlusal anatomy of the tooth structure. So whenever you are giving these grooves, they should always follow the incline of tooth. Yeah. So once your grooves are done, so this is basically the advantage of grooves are to limit or to gauge the amount of reduction. So you are pretty much sure that you are only reducing a certain amount of reduction to surface. So once you give a depth, then you are always pretty much sure. You just have to join the depth so that it will automatically give you a proper tooth reduction of desirable amount. If you just have to join the depth, you just have to give a desired amount of tooth reduction. So this depth orientation grooves will always help you to guide you to decide the amount of tooth reduction. So this is how the occlusal reduction has already been done with the help of depth orientation grooves. Your functional occlusal reduction can always follow the burr direction. So facially your burr direction is this way, lingually in this way, lingual side in this way. So this is always follow the side of the burr has to always contact on the parallel to the surface which are going to trim. If this surface is in this inclined plane, your burr direction or surface of burr also should be in the same direction to maintain the same occlusal anatomy. Yeah, so buccal reduction sometimes is 1.5 to 1.8. Yeah, shoulder finish margin is around 1.5 millimeter thickness again, and then your lingual margin can be slightly lesser in that sense. Yeah, so when you try to give a PFM crown, the shoulder finish margin will be there, and then when you are when you are going towards lingual side, it will be chamfer. Yeah, so when you do this axial reduction, also you have to give some depth orientation grooves, and then you reduce the whole surface of us. After occlusal surface, you follow the facial and the lingual and then proximal. So facial surface also look at the burr direction, and then once, so this is also in 2-direction preparation. That means your tooth is in this way and then on this way. So this is a 2-direction reduction. So the particular surface is slightly inclined towards lingual side. This particular surface area is slightly parallel to long axis of the tooth in that sense. Yeah, so finish line always look when you're going towards the lingual side. So you can see here. So lingual side is always a chamfer, lesser. Buccal side is always shoulder. So buccal side margin thickness is more than the lingual side. Yeah, so lingual you just have to finish slightly with a thin margin. Our buccal side has to be a more shoulder reduction. So, and then there is a smooth transition from shoulder to the chamfer. So amount of reduction here is more and slightly going towards is a lesser and lesser towards the lingual side. Yeah. When you look for the proximal reduction, you usually use a thin taper diamond. You use it. Sometimes you can use some protective matrix band to avoid the adjacent to structure. It's very important to prevent the adjacent to structure trauma. Otherwise, even a small scratch will be a potential caries point for the adjacent to structure. Yeah, adjacent to structure has not done anything wrong with you, right? You just have to want to give a crown with the tooth on this, and if you just accidentally scratch the 5, what's the point? The patient will come back after a few months or few years with another secondary caries, which you always want to prevent. Yeah, so during demonstration, I'll be describing you how to prevent the adjacent to structure by using matrix band or thin enamel lip and so on later on. Yeah, and then finishing is always important. Finishing will give you a more defined tooth surface, well-rounded tooth surface, so that it can be easily recorded in the impression and so on. Yeah. So preparation for anterior tooth reduction is also same way. The shoulder more reduction and chamfer on the lingual side. Yeah. So you can see the burr also is shoulder. So shoulder is something like a flat and taper burr you can use, and then you can achieve a particular 90-degree butt joint in a shoulder reduction. Yeah, so anteriorly also you have to follow the same way, 3 grooves, and then you have to go for 2 plane reduction, one cervically and another at this way. So another this, and so incisal 2/3 and cervical 1/3. So this is how the original anatomy has to be prevented or maintained. Yeah, so lingual reduction can always be with any round and taper or dumbbell shape burr, and then the thin lingual margin can be with the chamfer finish line. Yeah, so proximal reduction is always with a thin taper burr first. We will be demonstrating a bit more in detail when we will be coming for the demonstration at time. Yeah, and that's how your PFM crown looks like. So shoulder on buccal side, chamfer on lingual side, and then there is a clear-cut demarcation. Sometimes you may have a clear-cut wing preparation, like a demarcation between shoulder finish margin and amount of thickness, and then the chamfer finish margin, lesser thickness, or sometimes you can be a smoother reduction in premolar and molar region also. Yeah, so that's how it typically a crown reduction will look like. Your margins are going this way, your original crown was this way, and then amount of tooth reduction you can see how much you need it for PFM. So more reduction on the facial side, lesser reduction on the lingual side, and highest one is at the incisal edge.